So I definitely did not want to be a CEO ever. Right. I really had it in my plan to be a CFO, but it's because I sort of understood, it's like when you're in class, I understood the levers that needed to be pushed to make the business do what you were trying to do. Right. And at that point, that vantage point, I thought that being the CFO would be better. Like,
this video is proudly sponsored by Chapman University's Archibald College of Business and Economics, located in beautiful sunny Southern California. Are you thinking about pursuing a master's in accounting? Chapman's MSA program is tailored for ambitious professionals like you. With intimate class size and a collaborative atmosphere, you will receive personalized attention from world-class faculty who bring extensive industry expertise to the classroom. Enhance your accounting skills, fulfill CPA license requirements, and elevate your career with Chapman's flexible MSA program. Discover more and apply today at chapman.edu/MSA. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Thanks, Rosey. This is going to be fun. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you. We have Jeff as the principal at the W2 Group LLC on the podcast today. Jeff, besides of being a principal, can you introduce a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So, Jeff Wilson. So I'm the principal of the W2 Group, which is an accounting and technology solutions firm that focuses on professional service firms and associations. And then we also, part of our business units is, we call it FLFA, which is our forensic accounting practice that focuses on family law. And I'm just managing director there, maybe the janitor sometimes there. And I'm also founder of a software company called GovErase.
That's a lot. I don't know how you can handle that much of work.
It's all accounting. I promise.
I don't know. Through this conversation, the audience will understand more. How do you end up with where you are right now? But let's start from the beginning. When you were in college, who influenced you to go with accounting major, or what made you decide to go with the accounting major?
Yeah, so who was my mentor? Her name was Willie Huey. She still is. And she was the CFO of my college, Bowie State University. And she was the person that gave me the Wall Street Journal. And I really wasn't reading it back then. This is like sophomore year. And I really took to really becoming a student of business. I can't say I wanted to be a CPA at first. I wanted to be a CFA. I wanted to kind of be a Wall Street guy. So I only went into accounting to kind of understand businesses. That's it. I'm still keenly always trying to understand businesses. And she really helped pave the way for me to become a CPA, CFO. It was a funny thing. So because of, it's like a parent, right? I told her I wanted to be a CFO, and, and she obliged to help me. Then one day she told me, she's like, "You're not going to be a CFO." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You're more CEO material." But it was funny and then disheartening a little bit. But I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah. CFO will last for a little bit." But yeah.
That's funny. How can you vision yourself that you want to be a CEO or CFO at the very young age?
So I definitely did not want to be a CEO ever. Right. I really had it in my plan to be a CFO, but it's because I sort of understood, it's like when you're in class, I understood the levers that needed to be pushed to make the business do what you were trying to do. Right. And at that point, that vantage point, I thought that being the CFO would be better. Like, okay, I wanted to focus on knowing how to grow revenue or how to grow profit or how to lower expenses, right? And I had an idea for how to do that. I could kind of look at things and kind of say, okay, here's what that is. But eventually I started to want to know what the value was, because I was so much into like investing, and like I was buying penny stocks and stuff like that. But I was reading the 10Ks and trying to understand. I was investing and not knowing what I was really investing in. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm looking at the ticker symbol moving up and down. So I'm kind of day trading, but I'm doing all that knowing that I need to know more information about investing. I know that I'm recklessly investing, right? And I made a lot of money, doing it. Like I was like an Apple investor before the iPod came out, that kind of thing. So I had ideas. Like Tim Cook was on my most. I love Tim Cook from the day he was at Compaq. Like I kind of was in the business. Like people watch ESPN. Like I was like, I'm a business junkie, and I was that even in college. And so I really just wanted to kind of really do more and more of that. So that's why I thought CFO was the best place for me.
CFO, wow! I know if you want to be a CFA instead of CPA, you have to pass 3 levels of CFA exams. It seems to be really challenging as well.
But 50% of that is accounting. Right, like, so, like any CPA, no offense to the CFAs, I think any CPA probably could pay. It's half of it is accounting, and then the other half is finance, right? So I think it's just a divergent from being a CPA. So, but that's what I really wanted to be a CFA. I wanted to kind of do the whole Wall Street thing. That was really my intent. But you run into this whole problem when you want to invest or learn that is you got to know the accounting. And I was stuck. There's no way around knowing accounting and how you treat goodwill if you're trying to really invest it, because that's where people get kind of, that's where people go wrong. They don't want to actually understand what's in there. So that pushed me further and further into accounting, becoming a CPA. And I'll say now, in my career, I find myself rolling backwards and backwards to the place of just having to know what's happening in the business, not necessarily all the accounting all the time.
I love that you already have the end picture in your mind. Like, I want to be the CFO. I want to do this.
Yes.
I want to do that at the very beginning, at the very young age. I'm telling you, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I was in high school.
Well, in college, did you know you wanted to do tax? You were like, this is what I wanted to right. So you just came out and was like, okay, I'm going to just try it out.
Exactly. I actually started 5 years in private. I started 5 years in private. And then I went to public, I worked in audit, and then I chose tax. So I was all over places. I had no idea what I wanted.
Well, yeah, I knew. I was like, oh man, I was really salivating at the tooth to go to Wall Street. I was like, I really just want to be an analyst. Like, that was just really what I wanted to do. It didn't happen that way though. That's the funny part. I ended up an auditor, which probably hindsight is a great thing to happen. I won't say that it made me who I am as a practitioner. I still probably would say I would rather have been in Manhattan or something by the time, but I think that audit experience, and when we talk about career-wise, I think that everybody should do a rotation in audit, whether you like it or not. I think it's one of the most foundational things from an accounting standpoint of like that experience, especially if you can have a really good manager. I had a really tough manager, but sometimes I wasn't too thrilled about his toughness, but it helped shape me as a practitioner. And I think audit is a thing to do. It's not, if you like it and you want to stay with it, great. I'm not in that area, but I think foundationally it's just a really big, it's that floor part of what you need to kind of, continue being a practitioner in our space. It's fundamental knowledge. Yeah.
I agree with you, Jeff, that I work in audit for 1 year, and that experience just carries with me so much later in my career in tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, that significantly helped me, like how I organize the work paper.
Yes. If you don't know a work paper, you don't know what support you in audit, you learn about making what if someone's looking. The rule is, right, someone should be able to come behind your work and know exactly what you didn't understand. That was the one thing my manager, no one should need you around to know what happened. And I take that everywhere I go with my staff, or no matter whether I'm in tax, accounting, like, hey, where's the description? Where's the attachment? I should never have to call you. If I have to call an employee at a late night, say, hey, can you do this? It's not my fault I'm calling you. It's yours.
It's so funny because when I moved to tax, my work paper, I use so many reference because that's how we do in audit. I reference exactly where you get this number, and I chase all the way to the original source. And so they were like, wow, Rosey, look at your work. I can tell you had some audit experience. I said, yep.
Yeah, you know it, and it's so great. Like it's just so foundational, right? So I know it's not a fun thing to do, but I think it's just one of the things that from a practitioner standpoint, when you're the one that's signing the check, it's make sure you don't get sued. But it's just I think when you're a kid, you're a kid going out. You're never thinking about if you don't do this right, the firm can get sued, kind of thing. But there's an adult in the room that understands, like, hey, you got to make sure you do that. You're going to get us all in trouble. So
yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, audit experience, it was good for me. It was just not a career for me, but it was good for me if I set the foundation
yeah,
for staff.
yeah. For me, I wanted to, and this is always, I'm always looking to make impact, right? And you can make an impact in audit. I'm not saying you can't. Some days I will. Somebody may catch me on another podcast and say I did say that, but it's not the impact that I want, because it's like I can't affect the lever as much, like with progress, like if somebody makes money, doesn't make money, or accounting operations saving money versus I'm kind of giving some audit tells people, fundamentally it says, hey, you can have confidence in these statements. That's what audit does, right? You're looking to opine and let the public know that these are some reliable financial statements, and that's extremely important. That's the job of the auditor. But I just didn't feel like I was making enough impact. For me, that's not the impact I wanted. It's great for anybody who wants to do it. There's nothing wrong with it, completely at all. I wanted to make it go up or down. I wanted to be the reason for the red or the green. It didn't matter, but I did not, I was like, all right, this isn't enough impact.
I really like your great mindset that you liked the challenge. And so that's probably explain why you were the project manager when you were still like a student in college. Share with me, how could that happen? How did you manage a group of 17 employees, department, when you were still in college?
Yeah, so that was, like I mentioned, my mentor, she was the CFO, and we had this program at the HBCU, and then where was that every we had a few things going on. We had a PeopleSoft implementation. The university was going through layoffs, and we had a laptop program that for all new freshmen, they got a new laptop. All these things were introduced at the same time. The schools were doing layoffs, and my mentor, they had to figure out how they were going to save costs, keep up service. And a part of that was a lot of the administration actually taught inside the classroom. So the CFO, in order to kind of keep costs low, she taught business 101. And that's where we kind of met. And one of the things she also was faced with was, how do I got to do layoffs and buyouts, and then how do we still keep services going? And she had this idea that students needed real work experience, but the talent needed to be cultivated, right? So she came up with this program where I'm going to cultivate student talent. It was called Student Business Services. I'm going to cultivate student talent, plus I'm going to augment workforce a bit, right? And have these students work inside real offices, right? And it was kind of like a student staffing agency that went throughout the university, while also really helping us cultivate. Like some meetings, we had to go to etiquette training, right? Like that was actually hosted by some of the university's vendors, like Sodexo, and where we actually, here's where the fork is, here's where your cup is, like these things that really teach these kids how to be professionals. So she was cultivating these young executives, these professionals, into executives, and that program was largely successful. And I wasn't the first project manager, but on the second go for it, I think they did a vote. I think they get a vote, but I think she had to approve it. I don't know how it happened. At first I was just like the treasurer, which was like not much, and then when we kind of broke it into the actual university's org chart, I ended up being the project manager for that. And so actually, not only did I had staff working in other offices, but I also was overseeing the university's laptop program. And it's two programs. I actually ended up with two. I started with one and ended up with all of them under me. And that was really about asset management and for the university. And because she had me working in asset management first. And so I really had a good handle for fixed assets, asset management. So that was like my core job, right, in college was fixed assets, asset management. What is the property tag, depreciation, a PeopleSoft thing, and so it was a lot of experience gained in doing that program, and I had to manage people my age or even my friends, it ended up being. And but that was one of the best things that can happen. It's constantly, I'm always reminded of how it shaped me as who I is. It's one of the great things I think that when you talk about school programs and things I learned, I try to tell kids, say kids, I don't age me. I try to tell students in college, like, get as much experience as you can early on. The best thing you can do, because I'm gonna tell you truthfully, I didn't have, though I went to a Big Four institution when I left. I didn't have Big Four experience when I was in college, and that was the one thing my peers were a bit ahead of me of. Like, everybody had interned at some of the Big Four. They were like, "Oh, I've interned at EY." I was just showing up to the party, right? I was kind of the runt of the group, right? And so that was a lot of like catching up I had to do. But that's how that kind of worked out. And she, like I said, she really helped kind of shape how I kind of operated now. But that program in the university, like, she really working in asset property management, and like, I had to go through these audits, right? When the state came to audit the assets, hey, I was front and center, like, okay, here's where this is, here's this asset tag here, because they were doing, when you get older, they were doing completeness checks, right? And saying, okay, give us your property asset listing, and then let's go see every asset. And I was responsible for all that. And so it was just a great experience. And it was like my really introduction into like accounting vis-a-vis fixed assets. But every year was something new. I had a budget. She helped me manage that and kind of helped me with that one-on-one. Obviously, she didn't help the other direct reports because they're adults. But she's like, okay, here's what it looks like. So you're kind of getting groomed into that. And we definitely we needed a lot more of that at HBCUs. But that was kind of how I got here.
That's pretty impressive. You learn so much about the profession, about accounting by managing this project. Now, I'm just curious, besides of like knowledge about fixed assets, knowledge about accounting in general, what did you learn about managing people at the same age when you were so young?
I'll tell you what I learned, not necessarily with people. That wasn't one of the most important things. I learned culture. And what I learned was that I was able to intern as a result of this program. I was able to intern some other places. I interned at Sodexo USA and during this time, because they also were a vendor and they were a sponsor of the program. I learned that based on where you're at industry wise, there's different cultures. And that was so important because when you go into public accounting, you're going to really be faced with different type of clients, and you got to know the different cultures. I can tell you government culture was, when I dealt with state auditors, the culture was different. Higher education is its own culture. And you have to kind of deal with that. And then corporate is too. And so when managing a younger team, the one thing you also have to do is you have to be genuine, but you have to be like kind of direct in a sense, to kind of say, I always say we're going to have some fun and some laughs, but we're going to get it done, right? We're always trying to get for a win. And you kind of, that's always tough because sometimes people are your age and maybe they're like, hey, you're taking this too serious. But the thing is, that's the point of leadership, right? Leadership sort of sometimes sees things that everybody doesn't see. Doesn't mean that they're smarter. It's just vision, right? Being able to see things. And management or leadership's job, because I don't manage, is leadership's job is to explain what you see that they can't see, and then helping everyone attain, clearly describing the goal. And that's very tough when you're talking about some 20-year-olds. And because at that point, you just want to get paid, right? You're like, I'm a college student when you're paid, and my job, right? That was the hardest thing ever, because you think about it, my boss, their boss is me. I'm nobody, right? I'm a college student. But my boss is the CFO of the university, and she's telling me, this is what you have to get done. That was the hardest part, is that I had a real boss. Like it's just like, she's not playing. And they may have seen me as like not serious sometimes, because it's hard to take, it's college. So I'm out. It's hard to take a guy serious. He's in a suit with you on Monday, and then he's out partying with you on Saturday, and it's a college party. So I need not add any more about my antics. So it's hard for people to take that seriously. But that was probably the hardest part of like, hey, man, we got to get results. Like at the end of the day, we got to get results, and getting a young team onto the top of like what's results is tough.
But that's exciting. That was such an exciting experience for you.
Yeah. I don't know if it was exciting. It was scary sometimes, like because you know why it was so scary. But I think this is what makes it great is that was a executive putting her neck on the line because she's having faith in some students to deliver.
Yeah.
Right. Just think about that. Right. Could we deliver what she's basically gonna? As an executive, it's going to be a bragging point for her if we're success, and it's going to be a big problem if we fail. And so that was the stressful part because you want to deliver, right? She's my leader. She was my leader then, and my job is to deliver for her, right? So that was always the tough part of like getting everybody like you didn't want to let that's the thing of good leadership, and you don't want to let good leadership down. So.
Yeah, that's interesting for me to hear your experience when you were still in college and you led this many people for like 3 years. But then you just mentioned that, and then when you start full-time job at KPMG, you need to catch up with people with the same class with you because you did not have internship at KPMG before. But you had experience as managing this project, so you have something else.
Firm culture, yeah, but public accounting culture was the thing that I think it's a lot of things with that. Like, when I look at it, is that firm public accounting culture at that time, right? I think it's a different thing now. It was just a different culture, right? And then also too is like, the large firms pick the best of the best students, and I came from a very small HBCU that they weren't even recruiting from at the time, right? So just to be honest, I'm in a audit room with people from Virginia Tech, some very high elite, kind of colleges, and I'm from. They couldn't even say my college's name right, and sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, you from Bowie State?" I'm like, "Dude, Bowie State, get it right." Like it was that. That was the like where I was at. Not everybody, but this is like some people. So it's intimidating. Just to be honest, it was intimidating. But you had to, find a way, kind of do your thing, and like eventually you kind of find your way. But no matter what, it's a head start, right? And head starts are great. I wish I had that head start. So that's just what it was.
Yeah, and so you work at KPMG for almost 3 years.
Yeah. Well, maybe three, close to 4. I had some interesting engagements there. I worked on the prisons. So
What? Like a real?
Yeah. That's why meet the kind of the short stint there. Yeah. I audited prisons. There. That was my.
Well, this is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to know your experience auditing the prison. What it was like?
Oh man, that is so I'll tell you a bit about it. It wasn't my only client, but it was my primary client one way or another. There's 2 entities inside the prison system, and I spent pretty much my summer or a little bit more than a summer. Every week I was at a different prison. So actually when I came out of college, I wasn't home. Like I was on the road, right? Like just going 1 week I would be in Kentucky, or I'll be in Victorville, California, and then I'm in Texas and Beaumont, and then I'm in Bastrop, Texas. And each week I would maybe come home for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, maybe Friday, get home Saturday, leave out Sunday, back to another prison, leave out. And so I've seen most of the United States through the lens of the prison system, because I've been to almost every prison in the United States. There's very few states I have not been to, because and when like people like, have you been in a state? I just think of what prison it is, because that's how. Like, yeah, I've been to Pennsylvania, Allenwood, North Carolina, Butner. Just pick a state. I just think prison first. That's just kind of, yeah, which one?
Oh my God! And so, how did you end up with doing audit?
Because because the federal government, right, was the client, right? And my particular client was the Bureau of Prisons. And so that was our audit client. So, and so
Oh,
you know, that was a great experience too, because you're getting this huge, you could think about the Bureau of Prisons and how large that is of an entity compared to, small business. Like I always tell people when I started my practice, I had never seen $1,000 on any income. I didn't know. I was like, "Is that $1 million?" And that's where I knew my life had changed. They're like, "No, it's 1,000." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I didn't realize what I got myself into, because I was like, I've never seen. Every time I see that, it's a million or $1 billion behind it. But yeah,
that's funny. So when you work on all those audits in the past at KPMG, I guess it was the beauty of doing audits that you travel to all different states, all different locations, and you learn so much.
yeah, I was in it for the rewards points. Yeah.
Yes.
The travel points were great. Yeah.
Yeah. But now when you did all of that, those audits, what did you learn the most from auditing all the presidents?
Man, the thing that I learned the most actually was probably proper audit documentation and work paper. That was like I learned how I got a lot of experiences out of that, but I think the foundational is what I got out of, like how to put a how your work is supposed to look. I had one of the most, I couldn't stand it then. I'll say that right now, it's kind of one of those things where your parents give you a spanking and you're not happy about it, but you get older and you realize it may have been for the best. That's kind of how I look at some of that experience. Is I had a manager who was extremely, extremely stringent on like work pay. This ridiculous, extremely stringent. But that helps set the foundational part of of me doing good work, right? Like, because he kind of set this precedence of this is where it got to be. Like, he would go off if the letters were to the left versus in the middle to the right. Like, it's got to be, you're either going to center your letters in every work paper or you're going to go to the left. Whatever it is, you're going to keep. So it was those little things, like overall, that kind of made sure, over the years that, that you just kind of keep honing on that skill set of just really being really precise about the work that you do. He was really precise about that. I didn't like it at the time. I ain't gonna say it's bad, but
did you ever feel that it was not safe at all for you to go to do this audit?
Let me just. That's a great question, Rosie. Let me just say this. I actually walked into the prison. So we weren't like outside. I was actually inside the prison. I worked with the inmates. Some of them were accountants, some weren't. I would say that it depends on, who you are. Some days it wasn't as safe as others. Some prisons, just the nature of it, aren't as safe as others. But, I didn't get hazard pay, put it that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I would hesitate to take that audit.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to be doing that for like 5 years straight. I don't know. Yeah. So, i.e., as you talk about the time there, right? It's tough when you're good at something, right? So I was, good at that particular one, but yeah. So but jokingly, I never felt necessarily unsafe. It's a prison, stuff happens, but I think it's, when we talk about culture, to be serious, on a serious note, prison has culture too. And you'll learn it as you're auditing. If you're paying attention, it's a culture, and you got to know how to navigate that culture. So, how you talk to an inmate that's an accountant, yeah, you got to know how to do that, right? So, some of those skills I learned wasn't always just, it's communication. Man, this guy is in here for 10 years. You got to know how to approach him in a right way to get what you want and still make it home to dinner. You gotta learn those things. So that's one of the things I was able to hone, like different cultures, right? Like, to be able to just communicate and cross different cultures. Prison culture, and I'll be clear, the prison culture in Florida, in Coleman, Florida, is very much different than it is in Yazoo City, which is in Mississippi. So you have to know how to, really do that. And sometimes, whoever, judge it or not, you got to know how to build. I'm working with an accountant who's a prisoner. How do I build a rapport to connect with him that he doesn't see me as an adversary? and helps me get my job done. How do you do that, right? And so
I give you a lot of
that's
credit.
what you gotta do.
Yeah, I give you a lot of credits for doing that job, doing this that audit. Because if I did that in my earlier career, I would be like so shaking. And like talking about like prison, I just went to the court this week because I got a speeding ticket and I was like shaking. I was so nervous.
Oh
like,
man!
oh my god! Oh no! What should I say?
I'll tell you a funny one, right? So one time I did shake. I'll tell you what happened. We were in California. We were in the desert, and the lights went off, and we were in the factory floor in the back. And that was the one time I was like, oh my God. And like the inmates kind of were going crazy, like making a bunch of noise and like not rioting, but they wanted to like act like they were when the lights were out, like making a lot of noise. And that was like the one time I was inside the prison. So I was like, oh my, and it was one other person, one of the auditors who was with me. We ended up being really good friends. Like kind of like my brother now, and probably he's more like my brother because we felt like we were in a life death situation. We were looking at the door, and I was like, "Hey, push those cabinets in front of this door if we have any chance of making it out." But the power went back on. But that was the scariest. That was kind of as deep as it got. But I was like, "Oh my God!" So in the desert, the power goes out. It flicked a bit, but yeah.
So you did have those moments.
Yeah,
and those moments will keep.
Yeah.
You probably remember that those moments until now, like exactly how you felt.
Never forget that one. I will never forget that. I was like, oh my God. And that we were in a penitentiary. Like it wasn't like a regular prison. This was a penitentiary. So this is like, these are people that are in for a long time, and you're like, oh God. Yeah. So nothing happened, but it was one of those moments you're like, oh yeah,